Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me today. Well, today we have another fun video coming up, and the theme today is kind of stamp kissing, but we are actually going to do a whole lot of ways to do this technique, because where there's a will, there's a way, and sometimes we have the products on hand, and sometimes we don't, so we find others. So today we are going to explore and go through some of the options that you are able to use to do this technique. So in general, for stamp kissing, you need to have one more solid image stamp and one detailed image stamp, and you are going to kiss them together or press them together. Now, for the solid image, I'm going to use this one here. This is the Speak Beautiful Things stamp set by Gina Designs, and there is also the outline you can see there. Now, for example, you may use this Catherine Paula stamp as the detailed image that you could press up against it. But of course, we are going to use a whole lot of things today and see how we go. So I'm going to be using my stamp platform. I'm going to take the solid image and we're going to do some testing first up. So when it comes to getting a really good stamped image, I am going to be using my VersaFine pigment inks today. Now, don't worry if you only have one and you don't have different colors, because we're going to do all sorts and I want to show you all the options today. So I'm going to take a clean white piece of paper and pop that down there. I am going to ink up my stamp with some Tulip red VersaFine Clair ink, and then I'm going to take one of these stamps from the Ornamental Thoughts stamp set from Catherine Paula, the one you saw a minute ago. I'm going to press this into the stamp, and I did it fairly lightly. We are going to have a really big sort of explore. I pressed it in 3 times, and I'm going to press it down nicely onto the paper, and you can see that we can see the ornamental design come through into our solid image. So this time I was wondering if I should do a layer behind it, because the first one is just white. So where there is no ink, there is just white. But this time I want there to be a peek through of yellow. Now, because we're going to use yellow and then we're going to use the red on top, that does mean we're going to get an orangey sort of flower, but hopefully we can see some yellow peeking through where we do the stamp kissing part. So this is the very traditional way of doing it. This is the stamp kissing, where you place a solid stamp or a detailed stamp onto the solid stamp and you kiss them together, and that makes the image like this. So now I will say that some of these are a little bit harder to keep to show you on camera, but in real life I think these stand out pretty well. So we are going to keep moving through with all sorts of different ways to do this. So above, you can either have a background color or no background color. This one we are going to have one, and I'm going to choose some Cheerful VersaFine Clear ink. This time we are going to do the stamp kissing with some bubble wrap. So instead of using a stamp, I'm going to use bubble wrap. You can use all different sorts. As far as I know, there's 3 different sizes. I've had the mini ones. This one here is the normal one, and then I just showed you a second ago the large bubble wrap. So you can try all of them. Now, I came in with a slightly darker yellow. However, I think that although I can see it pretty good, it's a little bit trickier to see on camera. I think I need to have a little bit more contrast. So this time I use the Cheerful ink as a base, and then I go with the Tulip red as the upper layer, and then I stamp it down, and this looks pretty cute. I quite like this. I think if you were to do 2 different pattings down of the bubble wrap, you may even get a more defined image as well. This time I'm going to move on to some blue VersaFine Clear ink. Again, it doesn't matter the inks that you use. You absolutely do not have to use pigment inks. It's just about whether you get a really good stamped image. So if you get a good stamping ink, like a Catherine Paula ink or something like that, and it's a dye ink, go for gold. So this time I actually stamped off one. Now we are going to use a background die and press this into our solid stamp to see if we can remove some of the ink. So I ink it up again, and remember this, the ink that I've already stamped down is the 2nd generation there. I stamped off, and I'm going to do that a little bit from now just because I only have this one ink. So if you just have one ink, you can stamp off and then stamp on your project. And then this here is using the full strength ink. So I will say that this one probably didn't work the best. This one was the least favorable result using a die to press it in. Now this one here is a silicone scrubby mat. I think you can use these for paintbrushes, you can use these for cookie molding, you can use these for to clean makeup brushes and things like that. There's all sorts of uses. I have taken some of the pink ink here and I have stamped off, so second generation ink is already down there on the right. I press the silicone scrubby into it and then I take, so that removes some of the ink, and then I'm going to see what we get here. Now this one so far is probably the best. You can get a lot of different patterns that you can use as well with the silicone scrubbies. There's a whole lot of different patterns out there, so depending on what you have is the design obviously that you'll get. Now I'm going to use a stencil for this one. Now I wanted to take away a good amount of the ink, so I take a scrap piece of paper and take away some of the ink, press this down, and this is pretty cool as well. I quite like those results. Now these ones here are for cookies. These are for baking and for cakes and the icing, making patterns and in cookies, and I thought since I have a couple of these dedicated to my craft space that I would try them out. So I stamped off one of the ink there, you can see. Then I'm going to ink it up with full strength, and then I will press in the pattern makers, and I do sort of like wiggle it round a little bit to try and take off as much ink as possible. Now this is pretty delicate, but I can definitely see a good pattern in there. I wanted to try one that had a little bit more of a busy pattern, so I'm going to stamp off that ink one more time and then do the second generation down here. This is kind of my favorite because I don't have many of the light inks that I can put down as a first layer, so it's okay to stamp off. And then that one there gave a pretty good impression, I thought. And that was using just another one of the cookie pattern makers. So let's see what we've got here. There are so many options. I'm sure that you can look around your house, your kitchen, and see things that you are able to use to do the stamp kissing technique. So these are absolutely stunning. There is a wide range here, and again, this is going to change depending on inks that you use, depending on what you use to kiss with, all sorts. But you can absolutely have fun with this technique and take it as far as you would like to. So let me know in the comment section down below, what are some of the things that you have used to do mark making on your stamps, or some stamp kissing, whatever you'd like to call it. Let me know of those things that we might not think of, and maybe even I can give them a go. So we are going to turn this into a card now. I am going to put a little bit of mint tape doubled up into the inside of this card, and that is going to keep it nice and flat because I'm going to be stamping directly onto my card base now. Now I want to use my stamping platform for this. This is the easiest way for me to do the stamp kissing in this particular way that I'm doing it. So I am choosing to use the silicone scrubby. I think I get a really good impression without too much trouble at all from that. And I'm going to start off by using some summertime ink. This is an orange ink. I'm stamping off one time. Then I'm going to put the ink down onto my card base. So I'm getting a second generation there. I ink it up fully again. Then I press the scrubby into it just gently all over. I don't have to be too specific. Then remove it and then stamp down, and I get a tone on tone, gorgeous little textured stamp kissed look. Then I'm just going to shift this around my page. I am moving over to use the charming pink ink. I'm going to use 3 different colors, and I want this to be a fairly bright and cheerful card front. I'm going to stamp off and do the same thing on all 3 of the inks, just so I get that tone on tone. With these gorgeous VersaFine clear inks, you can stamp 3, 4, and 5 times sometimes to get different versions, different tones, different levels of lightness of your stamping. So if you only have 1 ink and you think you can't do this, then think again and give it a go and see how it works out. This is the Cheerful ink I am using, and again I'm going to stamp off. This flower is actually coming off the edge just a little bit, but that is absolutely fine. I want this card front to be nice and filled up. I do have to be mindful because I am going to use the outline stamp that is that comes in the stamp set, and it has a whole lot of, well, it has a leaf, some foliage, and so I need to remember to leave space for that when I'm going to stamp the rest of the flower. So I've been trying to keep that in mind as I move the stamp around my card front. And then I'm just quickly going to fill in the extra little spaces here. Now I'm actually going to do some of the outline stamping and then come back and fill in any spaces because I wasn't sure at this point what space I was actually going to have. So I did decide to use some VersaFine Onyx black ink to stamp these outlines. This outline is really easy to line up. I am not one for lining up very careful layers. I tend not to have the best luck with it, so I appreciate when it's just a really simple lineup situation with the stamps. Then I'm going to clean it off, move the stamp, and stamp onto the next one. You actually don't need a stamping platform to do this, but since I have it out and I'm ready to go, I felt that I am happy to use it. So you can see it's pretty easy to line up. It didn't take me too long. This is in real time here with me moving it. And yeah, I was pretty happy with the results. They lined up really well and really easily, which is most important to me. Now, I did stamp a couple of others coming off the edge there, and that's worked out really well. You can see that gorgeous texture that the stamp kissing with the silicone scrubby has left, so I was pretty happy with that. Now this is the Hello Metal die from Paper Rose Studios, and I'm going to put this together. This is a new one to me, however I think it's been out for a long time. I am going to use some Sizzix permanent adhesive sheets. These come in 6x6 adhesive sheets, and let me tell you, when I say I use my scraps, I'm going to use up all of my scraps because otherwise sometimes I find I just put them to the back of the package and I can leave them there, and then that's not value for money for us as the consumer. So I did piece together all those bits on the back there, but that's just a way I can make sure that I'm using up all of my little scraps and nothing goes to waste. Now I'm going to do the other, so I've got one sheet of black and one sheet of white. I'm going to die cut these more times than I need because I absolutely know I will use this die again, so I may as well cut as many as I can whilst I have the bits and pieces out, and I will store them in the back of the packaging. Now, help me out here. I'm going to need your help. Would you do the black with the white, so the black outline, the black shadow, and the white text, or the white outline and then the black text? Now at this point I was sure I was going with the white text and the black outline, and this sitting them on top of the card front changed my mind completely. So you're right, I'm going to use this one here. I just felt like it was a little bit less harsh. It stood out beautifully still, it muted the background enough, and I perhaps could have even used a vellum shadow, but I was happy enough with the white, and I think this was the perfect amount for this card. It kept it nice and cheery and light. Now I'm using the Paper Rose All Occasion sentiment sheets. You guys know I've had these for a very long time, and these are absolutely fabulous. I wasn't sure at this point if I wanted the black with the white text or the white with the black text. So I cut out exactly the same sentiment twice just so I could double check, but I decided that the black one would work well. Then I'm going to peel off the release paper, which makes it really easy. I can stick everything down. The little sub sentiment is going to go underneath there. I use my Tim Holtz long bladed scissors because that way I can cut straight. I'm just putting this all straight down. This is a very not dimensional card at all. It's almost one layer. Obviously it's got some cardstock and things attached to it, but it's all very flat. So that makes it really easy to post. I did decide to add a little bit of glossy accents to that black, and that is just gorgeous when you tilt it in the light. I don't think this card needs anything more. I was really happy with the stamping, with the texture of the flowers, and yeah, I had a lot of fun creating this one. If you enjoyed watching it, then please make sure you give me a like on YouTube, and make sure that you subscribe to my channel and click the little notification bell. And also I will leave links to the supplies below. But thank you so much for joining me. I truly appreciate it, and I will see you next time. Thanks, bye.